everybody. Welcome back to the Here to Be Free podcast. My name is Jixie. I'm your host, and I am so excited to have you here with me in this time, space, and dimension where we discuss all things freedom. You know, in all aspects of our lives, we desire freedom, whether it's within our families, within our relationships, within our friendships, our careers, our creativity, and especially within our own internal worlds. Within our emotions, we desire freedom. And we desire it because we deserve it. It's our birthright to be free. But the thing is, we live in a world that makes it kind of feel difficult to be free. And sometimes our society feels like the antithesis of freedom. So I've been on a journey of setting myself free. And the point of this podcast is to share these insights with you guys and hopefully give you a new perspective on freedom, to hopefully give you some empowerment so that you can set yourself free. So today we are going to talk about water. We're going to talk about emotions, emotional freedom, and how to process our emotions, and just hopefully give you a new perspective on how water connects to our emotions. You know, I'm going to be telling you stories within this episode of my time in Montenegro and how I learned so much from the water just by swimming in it every single day, the books I've been reading about water, and even my own emotional struggles that I had while I was having these realizations. So let's get into it. If you missed the first two episodes, I shared a little bit about how I've been on a journey of solo traveling for the past 2.5 months to 3 months. I've been to about 8 different countries, but the country that I spent the most amount of time in was Montenegro, specifically a beautiful, charming town called Novi in Montenegro. And I spent 40 days in this town, just literally living my best mermaid life. If you follow me on Instagram, I know you saw me being a mermaid every single day on my little paddleboard, just floating. And I really felt such a deep connection to the water there. And I learned so much about myself, about my emotions, and about water and life in general just by having this time there. So I'm really excited to share with you everything that I learned in this little podcast episode. So I'm not quite sure how to begin, but I'll start by saying that, you know, there's a book that I brought with me on my travels. It's the only book I brought with me, and it's called Hidden Messages of Water by Dr. Emoto. And I brought this book with me because I intuitively knew that water would be a very important, integral element for me to connect to during this time. The crazy thing is, as I started recording this podcast episode today, a literal storm started outside of my window. And it's raining, thundering, pouring. I see lightning. So you might hear a little thunder in the background. So yeah, it just feels very aligned for me to be recording this at this time. Also, going to mention that it's Cancer season. Cancer is an element of water. It's the sign of water. It's the sign of the crab. So yeah, it feels very aligned to be connecting with water even now and to be discussing water. So let's go back to Montenegro. As I was reading this book, you know, as I'm like laying out by the sea and like in my little Montenegro apartment, I was mind blown by this book called The Hidden Messages of Water by Dr. Emoto. Dr. Emoto is a Japanese scientist who photographed the crystals of water before and after saying certain words to it, playing certain frequencies and music to the water, and then the water would hold that information and then reflect back to him through crystals. So, for example, he would say, "Thank you, water," and photograph the crystal of water that would come afterwards. And it would be the most stunning, the most whole, perfected crystal. It's hard to explain with just words. I'm going to have to ask you to go on Google and Google Dr. Emoto water crystals, and you will just be mind blown. You know, he would also curse to the water. And the photographs of the crystals that came after cursing to the water would be these like distorted crystals that really just felt sickening. So just from this experiment alone, we can infer and learn so much. So, number one, what you can learn from this is that water has the ability to store data, to store information, and specifically store emotions. Water can hold our emotions, and it also reflects it back to us. Water is the ultimate listener of life and the ultimate reflector of life because it is within all things in life. Water is within everything that is alive. So within all of life, water is listening and water is reflecting back to us. Now, when we think about ourselves as humans, our human body is made of like 70-80% water. So let's think about this experiment with that perspective in mind. When you speak loving words to somebody who is made of 70%, 80% water, their body will hold that emotion and reflect it back to us. So, when we say words like, I don't even want to say curse words on this podcast, but when we curse at somebody, their bodies literally have the ability to store that data, to store and hold that emotion, and then reflect it back to us. And that reflection can look like, it can look like anger. It can look like violence. There's so many ways that it can be transmitted. So one thing I really, really would love for all of us to take away from this experiment is to hold each other and treat each other as sacred beings of water, just keeping in mind that you are speaking to someone who has the ability to hold and store that information and data in their very cells. And what do you want reflected back to you? If you want love reflected back to you, then show love and speak love over someone. If you want hatred reflected back to you, then speak hatred over somebody. That's the first thing that I would really love for us to kind of just mull on together. And maybe this is something you already know about. Maybe it's not. But either way, it's a really great reminder during a season that is the literal season of water, Cancer season. So this book revealed so many deep truths to me about water. It doesn't just get into the science of water, but it also talks about the philosophy of water and how to apply these principles to our own very lives. So as I was reading this book throughout the 40 days I was in Montenegro, I was simultaneously swimming and floating in the sea. So I was having this logical relationship with water, but then also this actual physical relationship with water. I was swimming in the water and then I would go home and then be in my mind with the water. As I swam and floated in the Adriatic Sea, I learned so much. One thing I noticed is that the water felt different every single day. This water was continuously circulating, continuously flowing, and the Adriatic Sea is some of the most clearest, healthiest, beautiful water that I've ever had the pleasure of being in. It is so clear. It has the most beautiful turquoise teal color to it. And if you've swam in it, it's just complete bliss. There's so much salt within the Adriatic Sea that you just float effortlessly within that water. It's like free flotation therapy. I can hardly believe that I used to pay like $70 to just float in a little tank in Los Angeles. And during these 40 days in Montenegro, I was able to just float my little butt off for free. So yeah, as I floated in this water, there's many things I learned. And I kind of want to tell you a story of something that the water showed me and revealed to me. So during my time in Montenegro, I had a very sticky situation with someone who I thought was my friend. But I ultimately ended up feeling very used by them, very betrayed in a sense. And it hurt me. And I thought I would be able to just like brush it off, and I wanted to just get back to my like hot girl summer vibes and just like go back to floating and being a mermaid and like being carefree. But I was in this like heavy emotion for a second, and I didn't want to be there, but I realized that I was there for a reason, just feeling these emotions. And as this situation was processing within my body, there was a very intense storm that happened in Montenegro. And this is a storm that I have never experienced the like of before. Like this storm, I don't know if I can even put into words how intense it felt. It shook my entire apartment, and my apartment was on like a high floor in a building, so I felt very up in the sky. I had a beautiful, gorgeous view as a result, but during this storm, it was kind of scary. It shook the walls of my home, and the windows rattling, and I literally thought I was going to get electrocuted for a second. Like that's how close I would see the lightning striking near me as I looked out the window. And as I looked out the window, one night during this intense storm, I saw the lightning striking the sea, literally striking the water. And I wasn't thinking much of it other than, wow, that's cool and that kind of looks awesome and it's kind of beautiful. So I was just being present with it, and I was a little bit scared. And as I'm seeing the lightning strike the sea, this didn't occur to me in the moment, but the day after. Water has the ability to hold an electric current. That's why you can't drop a hairdryer into the bathtub. You'll get electrocuted. So water has the ability to hold electricity. It can be charged by it, right? So I go to sleep that night after seeing this lightning striking the Adriatic Sea. And the very next day, the storm's gone. The storm's cleared. It's a little bit cloudy, but it's good enough to swim in the sea again. So I make my way down to the sea. I walk down the hill, say hi to all my favorite, cafe employees, and making my way downtown to the sea. I get into the water, and immediately I felt in a tangible and an energetic way that the water was different than it had ever been before in the 30 days I had been swimming in that sea up until that point. The water felt different, not just by temperature, but on an energetic level. It was like a new water. And it even looked different. The color was a little bit different, and there was just such a clear distinction in the water I had swam in a couple days before, and then that water that morning after the storm. It was new water. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. And as I'm floating in this new water, this concept, this download comes to my mind. What comes to my mind is that the transmutation of water, how water goes from gas to, liquid, solid, it has all these phases and it changes. That process, the transmutation of water, is directly linked to the transmutation of humanity's emotions. I'll say that one more time. The transmutation of water is directly linked to the transmutation of humanity's emotions. So I realized the storm actually made the water renewed. And in the same way within our own lives, sometimes a storm comes in our lives and sometimes it shakes everything up and it strikes us, with lightning, and it charges us. And what the storm does is it causes the water within us, the emotions within us, the water within us. The storm causes that water to circulate, to flow. The wind is blowing and it causes the water to flow. And the thing is, to become renewed, we have to allow that water to flow. If we hold on to certain pockets of water and allow that water to become stagnant within our bodies, then we cannot become renewed. In fact, the opposite happens. I believe when we hold on to stagnant water, stagnant emotions in our bodies, that's when illnesses arrive. Whether it's physical, whether it's mental, emotional, holding on to the water within our being, it actually holds us back from becoming renewed. And the thing about the Adriatic Sea is that even though these intense storms happen, it is still the most clear sea that I've ever seen, even after the storm. And the thing is, after that storm, it became a new water, and it really never felt exactly the same again. And I learned so much just by swimming in that water the day after this storm. I realized that this water that I swam in every day, it actually changed every day. Every day it was renewed. Every day the temperature was a little bit different. Every day the color was a little bit different. Some days it'd be a little bit cloudy after a lot of wind because all the sediments would get kicked up and stir in the water. And then some days it'd be super, super crystal clear, especially if there's no wind. So every day the water was changing, circulating, and I believe that's the reason why it's some of the clearest, healthiest water that I've ever had the pleasure of being in, because it flows. There's no part of it that becomes stagnant. It needs to circulate to become renewed. This reminds me of this quote that I've heard of once. It goes something like, you never step in the same river twice. Because you can step in the river once, and then if you step it in again, it's new water. The water that was surrounding your foot on the first step, it's gone. By the time you put your second foot in the water, that's new water coming through. The river is continuously changing. So I hope this makes sense to you guys. I hope that this gives you some kind of insight on how important it is to allow our emotions within us to flow, because our emotions basically are water. Our bodies are made of water, and our emotions are something that are within our body. And this is something that is being, discussed widely now in popular psychology. I think, there's books like The Body Holds the Score. I haven't read that book personally, but I get the gist of it. Your body holds on to your emotions because your emotions live within your body. And what's your body made of? Water. So water is the very vehicle, the vessel in which our emotions travel within. And if we don't allow that water to flow and circulate, then that's when we run into trouble within our internal worlds. Does that make sense, you guys? I really hope it does, because this information, this download came to me at a time, like I said, when I was going through a very sticky situation with a friend. So this came to me at a time I needed it the most. And after I had this experience, I realized, you know what, Jamie? My real name is Jamie. You guys know me as Jixie, and you can call me Jamie or Jixie. I really don't mind. But I told myself, you know what? You have to allow yourself to feel the fullness of this experience, all the emotions, and don't hold on to it. Don't hold on to grudges. Don't let yourself get stuck in bitterness and holding on to this experience and letting it affect your future friendships. You have to let this flow, and you have to let it go. Wow. I feel like I needed to hear that in this very moment. So that is something I learned. It's a beautiful thing when you can learn something from nature. And we all have that capacity within us because we are just so connected to nature on an inherent level, especially water. You know why? Hint, hint. I'll give you a clue, because we're made of water. But yeah, our emotions are not to be suppressed. They're not to be held on to with bitterness in our hearts. Our emotions are to be revered, to be respected, to be loved, to be appreciated even, because they guide us. Within relationships, if you're in a toxic relationship and your emotions are arising and making you feel sad and hurt and angry, sure, in the moment, it's not going to feel good. But those emotions are guiding you. They're letting you know. It's like a language from your spirit, from your soul to your human self, letting you know, hey, this isn't right. This relationship, there's something off about this. This is not right. This job is not right. This friendship is not right. I don't feel heard here. This is making me feel hurt. Our emotions guide us. It's like a GPS for life in a sense. And, when we are not emotionally healthy, when we do not allow our emotions to flow like water, then sometimes we can misinterpret the emotions and we can react without thinking, without really coming from a place of intention and discernment. And that's when we can get into trouble. I'm not saying always listen to your emotions, because sometimes our emotions are not at a healthy enough state to be listened to without some critical thinking, you know? So take this with a grain of salt for sure. But there is an intelligence to water, you know? Like I said in the beginning, water has the ability, the literal ability to hold data, to hold frequencies, to hold and reflect emotions. And if there's an intelligence to water, there's also an intelligence to our emotions, because our emotions are, once again, basically made of water. Water is the vehicle of our emotions. And if there's an intelligence to the water, if there's a wisdom to the water, there's definitely a wisdom to our emotions. So let's respect our emotions. Let's thank God for our emotions. Let's not hate our emotions, you know? That's like hating water, when water gives us life. So yeah, I encourage you to really speak to yourself, not just to others with love, but to your own self. Thinking back to the crystals that Dr. Emoto photographed after, saying words of love to the water, like, I love you, water. Thank you, water. I appreciate you, water. And the beautiful crystals that would come as a result. Let's think about that when we speak to ourselves. Because it's not just others that are going to reflect frequencies back to us. It's ourselves. When you tell yourself, I love you, I thank you, I appreciate you, I'm here for you. Your body, the cells that are made of water, are actively listening and holding that vibration, holding that frequency, and they will reflect it back to us. You can practice this even when you drink water. As you hold the glass in your hand, you can tell the water, I love you, water. Thank you, water. Thank you for the blessing. Thank you for healing me. Thank you for making me whole. Thank you for hydrating every cell of my body. And then drink that water with gratitude in your heart. Something that I loved to practice when I was swimming in the water in Montenegro. I would get in the water and I would say things to the water. I would tell the water these very things. Thank you, water. I bless you, water. I love you, water. You're so cute, water. And I would imagine and feel like the crystals would shift from being, neutral to those perfected, whole, beautiful, divine crystals. And imagine those crystals just surrounding me, coming to me and kissing my body all over. So I really felt like this time in Montenegro of connecting with the water, it shifted how I see life itself and how I see my emotions, how I process my emotions. And it just gave me this divine reverence for water. And I thank God. Thank you, God, for giving us water. What would we do without water? Seriously, we wouldn't be alive. That's number one. But yeah, as I'm speaking to you right now, I'm looking outside the window and seeing the waterfall from the sky. And I'm just thankful for that water as well. You can go outside and tell the rain, thank you, water, There's so many ways that you can live with this knowledge, with this wisdom, and apply it into your own life. So the last thing that I want to share with you guys is a practice that will help you process your own emotions. I just want you to try this for yourself and see the impact. This will help you, especially when things feel really sticky inside, when things feel kind of gross and hurt, So, when you feel whatever it is, whether it's irritated, whether it's sad, whether it's hurt, angry, jealous, bitter, whatever the emotion is that you're feeling at the moment, maybe not right now, but whenever it arises, instead of pushing it away and instead of looking for a distraction and instead of repressing it and saying, ugh, I don't want to feel this, like get away. No. We're not going to do that. We're going to take a deep breath and we're going to let that emotion come into our heart and we're just going to let ourselves feel it. And it might feel like a pressure within the heart. Like it might feel like this filled up balloon of energy, you know? Let yourself feel that emotion, whatever it is. Let it come into your heart. Feel it. Let it expand. And I promise you, it will eventually dissipate and dissolve on its own. It will resolve itself on its own. What the emotion wants is to be felt and to be heard. That's the act of letting things flow, is to let it be felt. Let the water come into your heart and let it make itself known. Let it expand and let it flow and let it be felt. So let yourself feel the emotion that you're feeling within your heart until the pressure dissolves, until the pressure dissipates. This is a practice that I discussed with my friend Misty recently. Isn't that ironic? Her name is Misty, like mist, while we're talking about water. But yeah, I encourage you to share this practice with your friends. Try it for yourself and just see how you feel afterwards. Now, before I go, I'd love to share with you my 2 favorite books about water. These books have shifted how I feel about water, about my emotions, about life. They've taught me how to navigate some tricky situations, how to navigate conflicts even. So the first one, like I've told you before, is The Hidden Messages in Water by Dr. Emoto. That one really gets into the science of water as well as some philosophy about water. And it has beautiful photographs in there as well of the crystals of water. The second book I would love to share with you is called Be Water, My Friend. This book is written by Shannon Lee, who is Bruce Lee's daughter. And if you're a fan of Bruce Lee, the martial artist, you know that he always talked about water. And one of his favorite and famous quotes was, "Be water, my friend." And he took the philosophy of water into every part of his life, from his relationships to his martial arts practice to conflicts, struggles, financial struggles. And he would implement the philosophy of water to help him get through every part of life. And he wrote a lot of these teachings that he learned on his own into his journals, and then his daughter found them and she made them into a beautiful, very well-written book. So whether you're a fan of Bruce Lee or if you just want to learn more about the philosophy of water, I highly encourage you to read that book as well. It really actively helped me resolve a lot of conflicts within my life, within my career, professional settings, within personal settings. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. And yeah, that's it for this episode. I just want to say thank you so much once again for tuning in. I hope more than anything that this episode gave you a new perspective on water, on life, on your emotions, and just gave you a new reverence for life itself. Like, I feel like after learning about these things of water, I just felt this intense gratitude and love for life, for God, for my friends, for everything. And I feel like that's a big part in setting yourself free. So, thank you. Thank you for joining me. And thank you so much to everybody who sent me such loving feedback about my first 2 episodes. I really loved that feedback. It helped me more than you know. And it's helping me improve episode by episode. So feel free to keep that coming. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.